Hi, I'm Pryor Greg. Today I want to talk about the Four Noble Truths. So we'll start off by looking at the Samsapa Sutta, a handful of leaves. Once the Blessed One was staying at Kasambi in the Samsapa forest. Then picking up a few Samsapa leaves with his hands, he asked the monks, "What is more numerous, the few Samsapa leaves in my hand, or those overhead in the forest?" "The leaves in the hand of the Blessed One are few in number, Lord. Those overhead in the forest are numerous indeed." "In the same way, monks, these things that I have known with direct knowledge, but have not taught, are far more numerous. And why haven't I taught them? Because they are not connected with the goal, do not relate to the rudiments of the holy life, and do not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding. That's why I have not taught them. And what have I taught? This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the path of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. This is what I have taught. And why have I taught these things? Because they are connected to the goal, relate to the rudiments of the holy life, and lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to abiding. This is why I have taught them. Therefore your duty is the contemplation. This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. Your duty is the contemplation. This is the path of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. Which brings us to the first noble truth. And what, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of suffering? Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Disassociation from the loved is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In short, the 5 categories affected by clinging are suffering. There is this noble truth of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. This noble truth must be penetrated by fully understanding suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. This noble truth has been penetrated by fully understanding suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. It's easy to say that life is suffering, but as you can see, that's still not enough. We need to understand suffering, and we need to come to the place where we can say suffering has been understood. One thing we need to remember is that we all suffer. Rich people, poor people, male, female, black, white, tall, short, fat, thin. And when we begin to understand that everybody suffers, then we start to become more compassionate. Since moving to the temple here in Thailand, I've had a lot of contact with some Shan refugee children. They fled the violence of Myanmar, and they found safety on the Thai side of the border. Naturally, I've got a lot of compassion for these children. But it's also important to understand that the junta that rules Myanmar is also suffering, and therefore they too need our compassion. To just think of the regime as something evil will prevent us from having any compassion for them. And this could result in us wanting to take military action against them. Now, a lot of people, especially in the West, think that Buddhism's a negative religion. because of this first noble truth. But in fact, the opposite could not be more true. The third and fourth noble truths let us see that the first noble truth is to be reflected upon. It's not an absolute. So now we come to the second noble truth. What is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? It is craving which renews being and is accompanied by relish and lust. Relishing this and that. In other words, craving for sensual desires, craving for being, craving for non-being. But whereon does this craving arise and flourish? Wherever there is what seems lovable and gratifying, thereon it arises and flourishes. There is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. This truth must be penetrated to by abandoning the cause of suffering. This noble truth has been penetrated to by abandoning the cause of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things not heard before. So desire or cravings can be categorized in three ways. First off, there's karma tanha. Karma tanha is the desire for sense pleasures. We spend a huge amount of our time in pursuit of sense pleasures. And when we've got what it is that we were after, we want more of it. Whether it's food, our favourite rock bands, television programs, or anything else. Karma tanha keeps us wanting more. Next we've got bhava tanha. Bhava tanha is the desire for existence or for becoming. I want to be happy. I want to be rich and famous. Even wanting to become an arahant is bhava tanha. And then we have vibhava tanha. Vibhava tanha is the desire for getting rid of things that we don't like. We spend a lot of our time trying to avoid or to get rid of things we don't like. Even things like anger, hatred, fear. These all come under the heading of vibhava tanha. Desire needs to be contemplated upon. We need to see how these desires arise and just let them go. All we need to do is recognize this is desire. We don't need to try and get rid of desire. That would be desiring not to desire. All we need to do is see, here is desire. Here is how desire has arisen, and then just let it go. So the third noble truth. What is the third noble truth of the cessation of suffering? It is the remainderless fading and cessation of that same craving, the rejecting, relinquishing, leaving and renouncing of it. But whereon is this craving abandoned and made to cease? Wherever there is what is lovable and gratifying, thereon it is to be abandoned and made to cease. There is this noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing and light that arose in me about things not heard before. This noble truth must be penetrated to by realizing the cessation of suffering. This noble truth has been penetrated to by realizing the cessation of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing and light that arose in me about things not heard before. As we've come to understand the first two noble truths by direct knowing, not by books or by listening to someone giving a talk, but by contemplating. This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. We can now begin to let go of those things that cause suffering. Recently I gave a short talk on the 5 precepts. Without morality, there can be no cessation of suffering. Keeping the 5 precepts will be of a great value when contemplating or meditating on these noble truths. Now we'll take a look at the 4th noble truth. What is the 4th noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering? It is the noble Eightfold path, that is to say, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. There is this noble truth of the path of leading to the cessation of suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing and light that arose in me about things not heard before. This noble truth must be penetrated to by cultivating the path. This noble truth has been penetrated to by cultivating the path. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing and light that arose in me about things not heard before. The 8 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path are not steps to be followed in a particular sequence. Rather, they should be developed simultaneously. Of course, at first we might find we begin one step at a time, but ultimately they will rise together. So let's take a look at the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path has 3 divisions or aspects to it. They are 1. Wisdom, 2. Moral discipline, and 3. Concentration. Under wisdom we have A. Right view, B. Right intention. Right view is at the beginning, because without right view we wouldn't be able to get on the path. We need to understand the 4 noble truths. We need to have a good understanding of dukkha, suffering, and the cessation of dukkha. We need to have a good understanding of impermanence. We need to have good understanding that dukkha is mind-made, and so is release from dukkha. With right view, we know why we're following the path. So next we have right intention, or right motivation. Right intention or right motivation will occur as a consequence of right view. Once we see the truth of our existence, we'll naturally want things to change. These things that have motivated or shaped our lives to date, we will want to alter. We see that previously our intentions have been wrong intentions, and now our minds begin to focus upon right intentions. Lord Buddha speaks about 3 types of right intention. 1, the intention of renunciation. 2, the intention of non-aversion. And 3, the intention of non-harming. The opposite of these 3 is sensuality, aversion, and cruelty. So we can see that once we've got right view, our desire for fame and fortune dies away. We don't need to try and suppress these desires. They'll just naturally fall away by themselves. We also see that others suffer, just as we do. And when we're able to identify with others in this way, we will see a true loving kindness and compassion begin to take place in our minds. As these grow, we will naturally put aside aversion and hatred. So here, greed and aversion have fallen away. Now we'll take a look at moral discipline. I said before that with right intention, greed and aversion will fall away. Now we need to put our right intention to work. So there are 3 things that come under moral discipline. 1, right speech. 2, right action. 3, right livelihood. So there are 4 types of right speech. There's abstaining from lying, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from harsh or abusive speech, and abstaining from idle chatter or gossip. Right action. There are 3 types of right action. 1. Abstaining from taking life. In Buddhism, this means all sentient beings. 2. Abstaining from stealing. This includes cheating, exploitation, even taking longer breaks at work than you're actually entitled to. 3. Abstaining from sexual immorality. This includes adultery, rape, sex with a minor, or for monks and nuns, the observing of celibacy. Right livelihood. There are 5 types of businesses that Lord Buddha said a lay follower should not engage in. They are: 1. Dealing in weapons. 2. Dealing in human beings. 3. Dealing in meat. 4. Dealing in intoxicants. 5. Dealing in poisons. Now for monks and nuns, the list just gets longer and longer. We won't go into that one. So now we've seen how to conduct ourselves outwardly, we need to look at how to train the mind. Which brings us to concentration. Now there are 3 parts or aspects that make up concentration. They are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. There are 4 types of right effort. 1. To prevent the arising of unarisen, unwholesome states, especially things like greed, anger, and ignorance. 2. To abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. 3. To arouse wholesome states that have not yet arisen. Things like generosity, loving kindness, wisdom. To maintain and perfect wholesome states already arisen. Right mindfulness. Right mindfulness means being aware of where the mind is at this very moment. In fact, although we can be mindful that we are thinking about the past or thinking about the future, the real practice is about being mindful of each moment as it arises and passes away. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are this. 1. Being mindful of the body. 2. Being mindful of feelings. 3. Being mindful of mental states. And 4. Being mindful of mind objects. When we develop mindfulness, we see just what a powerful tool it is from preventing us from doing things like wrong speech, wrong actions, etc. Right concentration. The Blessed One said, "Now what, monks, is right concentration with its supports and requisite conditions? Any singleness of mind equipped with these 7 factors: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, is called noble right concentration with its supports and requisite conditions." Right concentration is wholesome one-pointedness of mind. As we continue to practice in this way, the mind will gradually become still and tranquil. As we further develop this, we can develop states of absorption, known as jhanas. Insight will arise, and arahatship may be attained in this very life. May you all be happy, may you all be healthy, may you all attain Nibbana in the shortest possible time.